For the first time in a long time, we are live, baby. Let's go.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Sam Olber. Please support the show by following on your preferred audio platform, and you can watch, subscribe, and leave a comment on YouTube. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are lifelong fans taking our passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Welcome in, everybody, to a live edition of Locked On Cubs. I think it's our first time going live, definitely our first time going live since spring training has started, since Cody Bellinger has become a Chicago Cub once again. So we're going to have a good time. We're going to talk a little bit, and then I'm just going to really just turn it over to you. It's really a mailbag day, questions day. So please let me know your questions, comments, anything you want to say, and we will get it taken care of tonight. The title of the episode, if you saw it, is have the Chicago Cubs done enough, right? And I want to, before I start taking questions, I want to talk about that question right now, because I think it's actually a pretty fascinating question that has a lot of different answers. What have they done enough for what? That's the question. Have the Chicago Cubs done enough for what? I think the answer there has to be, have the Chicago Cubs done enough to win the NL Central or to be the favorites in the NL Central? That's really the question. Because if the question is more, have the Chicago Cubs done enough to be World Series contenders? Of course, the answer to that is no. But the counter to that is, what could they do? I would argue, and when I say World Series contenders, I don't mean that they can't win a World Series. It's a kind of a unique thing. It's just on paper. We're talking on paper baseball here. If the Cubs were to add Jordan Montgomery, if the Cubs were to add Matt Chapman tomorrow, both those additions, would they be even close on paper to a Dodgers or Braves? I would say the answer is probably no still. But it goes back to the Arizona Diamondbacks philosophy or the Philadelphia Phillies philosophy a couple years ago of, hey, it doesn't really matter. Let's just get to October and see what happens. Because the last 2 years, both the Dodgers and Braves have both lost in the DS in 5-game series. I think the Braves lost to the Phillies twice, and then 1 year the Dodgers lost to the Padres, and 1 year they lost to the Diamondbacks. So it seems like the Cubs are kind of, using that philosophy of, if we could just get to the dance, build a good, solid baseball team, maybe we could upset one of these giants in the first round for them, coming off a 3-game series win, because, I think everybody knows that, the Dodgers and Braves are going to have tons of pressure on them if they do, have the 2 best records in the league. I mean, I'm talking about it like it's a formality. You never know in baseball. Guys could get injured. Guys could underperform. But, I would be very, very surprised if it wasn't the Dodgers and Braves 1-2 or vice versa in that regard in the National League. So, when we answer that question, have the Cubs done enough? I think we have to finish that sentence with, have the Cubs done enough to be the absolute nailed on favorites in the National League Central? I will start with my answer, and then I will go over to you guys. My answer is kinda. I know that's not, I know that's not super exciting, but they basically brought back the same exact team as last year with a couple additions, right? Number one, and most importantly, as we talked about for today's show, Craig Counsell. That makes a huge difference. You know what else makes a huge difference? The team that won the division last year does not have Craig Counsell. So that kind of goes double, right? You added Shota and Minaga, which really is just a replacement for Marcus Stroman. So his season will be compared to Marcus Stroman. You got Bellinger back. We'll see if he could return to form like he was last year. And then the other additions are Hector Neris, which you absolutely needed. You needed a stabilizer. You needed a late inning reliever stabilizer. And then the trade adding Michael Busch and Almonte back to the bullpen. The latter, I think, is a little bit more of a question mark to see how much he'll contribute. Busch, well, they're both question marks, but at least we know Busch is going to be there most days against righties for first baseman. So you can make the case the Cubs got slightly better on paper, a lot better on the margins. And, will that be enough to win the division? I don't know. We're going to see. Let's get to some questions. Let's get to some comments. I start a couple of them before the show because these ones were pretty good. This one is from Charlie. He says, working tonight, so jumping on to submit my question. I know with where we are now, we're projected to be in a 3-horse race for the Central. What one player will either help us win it or lose it? And, I think that's an interesting question. And my dad and I, we were talking about that on the show the other night. And again, I'm starting off with some pretty boring responses, but I don't think there's an answer. And I think that's kind of a testament to the depth of this team. I really don't think there's a massive, this guy has to be great or else, or if this guy's bad. If I had to answer it, it would be one of the two guys that was great last year, Justin Steele and Cody Bellinger. I would find it to be a hard path for the Cubs to win the division if Justin Steele or Cody Bellinger has massive regression in 2024. I think those guys have to be really solid and have to be kind of the backbone of the team in order for this whole thing to have success. But it's still, you never know. What if Swanson takes a huge jump and becomes the hitter that he's always wanted to be and his OPS starts with an 8? What if Nico Horner slugs 15 home runs? I mean, there's so many different types of projections with this team, which is why I think they're interesting. And I'm excited to see what happens. But my answer would be, I really don't know, but it probably has to be Steele and Bellinger. I think both those guys have to be good. I got one more starred here, and then I'm going to come right to the live ones. This one's from Steve. Adding Montgomery to this team makes the Cubs a World Series dark horse. So I want Montgomery bad. I probably, I don't think any other move's going to happen because they don't want to go over the first tax threshold. I think World Series dark horse, like baseball is so weird when it comes to the playoffs. I would argue the Cubs could be a World Series dark horse right now because you don't know what's going to happen. It is more important than ever. It is just about getting to the dance. Get yourself in October, get yourself healthy in October and see what happens. Now, I agree with you. Jordan Montgomery drastically increases the Cubs' chances to get to October because I would argue, if Christopher Morel, and I'm going to, hopefully we'll get some questions about him because there's a lot to talk about with Morel and Mvis and these guys. But if Morel does win that third base job, really the only hole then for the Cubs is who's going to DH every day, or if there's going to be one, and then who's going to be the fifth starter. And so if you get Montgomery, what do you do with Wicks, whatever. But I think Montgomery, increases the Cubs' chances a lot to win the division, which therefore increases their chance to make a run in October. All right, let me scroll up a little bit here. It's my first live in a while here. Let's see here. I saw a couple good questions. There's one about Matt Chapman that I wanted to see. Okay, here we go. Joe, if the Giants sign Matt Chapman, would there be any interest in getting J.D. Davis for third base options? The salary seems to work and a trade seems doable. I don't think so. I think J.D. Davis, is he that much of a massive upgrade with somebody like Chris Morel? And then, you have Madrigal. Maybe Madrigal's in the trade. It's a good question. I'm not a huge J.D. Davis expert, but I don't think so. I don't think so would be my answer there. We're going to take one more question, and then we're going to go to break. I think a move that could really boost their odds of the division championship would be Ryan Stanek. Thoughts on that? Heard there's mutual interest. Yeah, my thoughts on that would be, I think that's the type of move that's possible. I think that's the type of move that I could see them making because it fits salary-wise, and they definitely could use more bullpen. I wouldn't say it dramatically increases their chances to win the division, though. I think that's a little bit strong. I think the only thing left out there to dramatically increase their chances to win the division would be to sign Jordan Montgomery, Matt Chapman, or Blake Snell. And I find all those three unlikely. So we'll see. And we're going to take more questions coming up here next. Let me know anything you guys got, man. This is your guys' time, and I enjoy doing this. So we're going to take more questions coming up next. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Let me know who you guys got going all the way to the national championship. My Fighting Illini gave up 97 points at home last night, and it's unacceptable defensively. They need to start guarding people, or they're going to be out in the first weekend. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, we are back. Let's see what we got here. This is one I wanted to tackle because I'm starting to get a little tired of this. It's like deja vu all over again, like the great Yogi Berra used to say. Bring Bodie in, and that would take care of third over others. Guys, love David Bodie. Nothing against him. We did this whole dance last year. He had a big spring training. Unless the Cubs trade Nick Madrigal and Christopher Morel doesn't win that third base job, you will not see David Bodie in the big leagues. Maybe he could get traded. The Cubs could get rid of his salary, and some other team will use him. Don't get fooled this early on by spring training. I saw a couple other questions I want to get to about Matt Shaw. I can't scroll up and get them right now. Somebody said, Matt Shaw, is there a possibility that he gets to the big leagues really quick early in the season? I wouldn't say early, but I would start looking to see where he's at about June, July, and I could see him being a huge boost in August, September. I think that highly of him as a prospect. I want to touch on one thing really quickly, and then we're going to get some more questions here. A lot of buzz right now about Matt Mvis and his effort and there being room for him on the roster, because I believed, and I said this at our live in-person show last week, that when the Cubs went after Michael Busch and then doubled down with Dominic Smith and David Peralta, it really, I thought, kind of was an exclamation point to say bye to Matt Mvis. And it's kind of starting to hit me, and I'm not buying into it. I'm just throwing this out there. If Christopher Morel wins the third base job, that is such a key part of this offseason or this spring training. And, I haven't watched a ton of him there yet. My guess is he won't start the year there because I think Counsell really values third base and defense and run prevention as a whole. But if he does win this job, what it does is it opens up a DH spot for somebody like Matt Mvis, for somebody like Alexander Canario, and it opens up a job there. And I got to tell you, if on opening day, the starting lineup in batting order was Happ, Horner, Bellinger, Suzuki, maybe Busch, Swanson, Morel, Mvis, and Gomes, that's a pretty deep lineup with some real power upside there. It sure lacks a ton of speed, but, it is interesting. I will admit I closed the book on Matt Mvis, and I still kind of lean that direction, but I am very interested in seeing how the rest of spring goes for him, because if Christopher Morel, there should be nobody that's a bigger defensive fan of Christopher Morel than Matt Mvis. He should be in Council's office every day saying, hey, Skip, Morel looks like a natural over there at third. Reminds me of Mike Schmidt, Brooks Robinson, Nolan Arenado, because if he wins that job, speaking of Morel, it opens up a spot for Mvis to DH. Let's see what else we got here. Chris says, Sam, do you see Patrick Wisdom being traded due to his poor defense and inconsistent hitting and bringing up somebody like Vasquez? I don't, I can't, not everyone's going to make the team. You got Wisdom, you got Cooper, you got Peralta, you got Smith, you got Mvis, you got Canario. It's very crowded there for that DH spot. So somebody is not going to make it. Right now, it's too early for me to tell or to, make predictions. Jake, I see you, man. Why is Drew Smyly still on this team? I've gotten a little flack in the comments for being too hard on Drew Smyly as a starter. I actually am happy that Drew Smyly's on this team. I just don't want him on this team as a starter. He is a reliever. And so far through 2 spring training starts, he's looked like a reliever. And I think the reason he's on this team is he's getting paid like $9 million this year. But I do not see him winning this job. I thought it was almost blasphemous that there was an insinuation among a couple of Cubs outlets that he was the favorite to win this job. It should not be him. And I think he's good in the bullpen. Give him a max effort inning or two, or he could be a junk inning cleanup guy that has some value. He's not a starter as of right now. With this kind of rotation that we have, I think it's obvious. Opening days, Justin Steele. I like Matt's prediction. I think they slide up Jamison Tyone to game 2. Imanaga game 3. Hendricks gets the ball at Wrigley for the home opener. And then Jordan Wicks is your 5th starter. Immortal Goofy comes on and says, Sam, come trade deadline, which high-level pitchers would you target? What prospects would you be inclined to move? Give me some hypotheticals. Thanks. Immortal Goofy, that is a little bit too much for me right now. I'm just trying to get to spring training. That question is so loaded because it depends what teams are bad, what teams are willing to trade guys. I can't tell you what prospects the Cubs are going to trade. I got to see how they're doing first. What I can answer in that question is that most likely at the deadline, I would think the Cubs will be trading an outfielder or 2 because it's very crowded. You have your 3 main guys, your backbone guys right now, Suzuki, Bellinger, Happ. Then you have your minor league guys of PCA. Owen Casey's off to a steaming start in spring training. Canario, Brennan Davis, Alcantara, one of those guys that I just mentioned probably goes. But we'll see. We'll see. We're getting some good questions here. What stat line are you hoping for Michael Busch, Jake? Guys, this guy's got to be good. Jed kind of passed on signing a high-profile bat, and he went after Michael Busch. Michael Busch needs to hit. This cannot be an Eric Hosmer, a Trey Mancini type of situation. This young man needs to hit. What am I hoping for? I'm hoping that the OPS starts with an 8. I'm hoping that there's productive at-bats. I'm hoping for 25-plus home runs. I'm hoping that he could battle against high-level pitching. I'm hoping that he has a good eye and has a good value of the strike zone and can deliver when it matters. So to be honest, I'm hoping for a lot. I think I have very high expectations for Michael Busch. The Cubs gave up a really nice prospect for him, and I've heard good things, and he needs to be good. He needs to be good. Here we go. We got some more here. I got Corbin, then I got Chris. Thoughts on Owen Casey? I feel like he could fit in the DH situation like you just explained with Mvis. Probably wouldn't be early in the season, but he brings the big lefty power as well. Yeah, listen, down the road, the Cubs have a lot of fun options that could come up and have a cup of coffee with the team, see how they do, DH mix in. Casey's definitely one of them. He's also a trade candidate as well. We'll see. He's off to a really good start. He's got probably as big a power as anybody in the minor league system. Chris says, do you think Cade Horton could come up in like May and take the 5th starter job. Follow up, potentially move Wicks to a 6th starter. The Cade Horton not being in spring training thing to me was a little bit weird, but the answer is yeah, maybe not as early as May, but I would hope with the trajectory that Cade Horton is on that he should be, I wouldn't even say could, he should be a part of the Cubs rotation by July or something like that. And that would obviously give this team a huge lift. It could be one of the reasons why they aren't going after a guy like Montgomery, because they know they have somebody special coming in. Would that move Wicks to a 6th starter? That's above my pay grade. It depends what's going on in June and July. But I think Cade Horton not could be, but with the trajectory he's on, he should be in this rotation right around the All-Star break, maybe a little bit after. Let's see what else we got. We're going to go for about 5 more minutes. Okay. 5 more minutes. Let's see what we got here. Let's see if there's anything else here. Tim says, any chance we'd ever go for an occasional 6-man rotation, like on long streaks with no days off? Yeah, there's a chance for sure. You want to keep guys healthy. I mean, Justin Steele had some arm problems last season. You want to keep him fresh. Imanaga hasn't thrown a ton of innings. So I definitely could see them doing it. And they have the depth to do it. I always thought that if they did make a major signing or trade for Glass now, that they would do it. So I definitely think that they will. Let's see what we got here. Who's your favorite prospect that we have? Well, it used to be PCA. Then it was Cade Horton, and I'm really in a Matt Shaw phase, but I'm going to stay with Cade Horton. I think I'm going to go with Cade Horton. And Brady. I think Cade being a bullpen arm in September once he nears innings limit is better. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's better. I'd like to see Cade Horton start. I want to see the Cubs develop a real big-time starting pitcher. And I think if Cade Horton is ready and he dominates at all levels this year, I'd like to see him come up and start in the big leagues. This is supposed to be the year. We've been sold, Brady, by your best friend, Jed Hoyer, and somebody that I support. The young kids. If he's pitching well, they don't have to crush his innings at minor leagues. Last year, he always was coming out after 4 or 5 innings anyway. He could pitch 4 innings at a time, and that's good enough. Let him come to the big leagues and help this team out if he's ready. We don't have to put that much kid gloves on him. One of our best top listeners, Eric the Underdog. Will Sam Olber throw an interview with Eric the Underdog in the year of 2024? Eric, let me know when you're in Chicago, man. We'll get something done for you. You have my word. What else do we got here? We got a few minutes left. Some of these questions, guys, that you ask me, if I knew the answer to these, I wouldn't be on this show. Will Ed Howard ever make it? I don't know. That's a tough one. 0 to 100 using one of our segments. Seiya goes over 30 bombs. I'm at about 65. Reagan, I would say I'm right there with you at about 65. Seiya Suzuki should hit 30 home runs in the big leagues this season. It's time, Seiya. You had flashes of brilliance in your first season here, flashes of brilliance in your second season. In year 3, I want to see the full package, Seiya Suzuki. I want you to be a top 10 MVP type of guy. I want you in the All-Star game. Put it all together for us right now, Seiya. All right, we got time for 2 more questions. Colin, is there a reason we've seen Smiley twice but not Steele or Tyone? I don't think it's anything worth going crazy over. Probably just trying to be really careful with Steele. And Smiley's competing for a job, and he's not doing it well. So we got time for one. We'll do 2 more. One little bonus one. Who leads the team in homers this year? Seiya, Belly, or Morel? I'm sticking with it. Seiya Suzuki is going to lead this team in home runs this year. I'm going all in with Seiya. And the last question that we will take today, what seed will the Illini be in the tournament this year? This team has a lot of talent. I think they've underachieved a little bit, and unfortunately will be on the 4 line. And their second game, that first weekend, their second game will determine if they go to their first Sweet 16 since I was in 5th grade. Thank you guys for coming on live. I appreciate it. I hope I answered as many of your questions as I could. We will be live a ton throughout the regular season. You guys remember Matt and I's post-game format. It's always a blast to hear from you guys. If I didn't get your question, hit me up on Twitter and I'll get you over there. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 20 to 30 minutes and we'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or two along the way. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube, smash the like button for the algorithm, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Olber, and this has been a live edition of Locked On Cubs. Have a great night, everybody.